Hello, my name is Benjamin Hart. I'm an American attorney and the managing director of Integrity Legal here in Bangkok, Thailand. Unlike usual, we're not going to get into a massive citation here. I am going to go ahead and throw this up. This is a tweet from the New York Post on Twitter. That's at NYPost. And the headline, as you can read here, WHO director calls for World Pandemic Treaty to prepare for Disease X. Neat. You know, all I have to say on this is, on this one, I've done something of a deep dive into this, but I don't want to get into like citing stuff because as with the sort of amorphous beginnings of the COVID narrative, and I'm going to start calling it just the COVID narrative from here on out, there were certain aspects of it that had a real world implication, mostly government intervention, by the way, and less so an actual disease, especially now that we're looking at the data pertaining to excess mortalities occurring, especially prior to the introduction of what came to be defined a vaccine, which had a different definition prior to the middle of this pandemic when the CDC, especially in the United States, changed the definition of what a vaccine is. Leaving that aside, I'm calling it the COVID narrative, so let's just go with that. Now, apparently, and again, I'm not citing sources here because this is something that's been very nebulous, even in any of the cited documentation. But basically, at this last meeting at Davos with the World Economic Forum, there's been this discussion of a new disease that we don't actually know exists, but it will exist and we will create a vaccine for it, notwithstanding the fact it doesn't yet exist, but we'll create it for that disease, and we're going to call that disease Disease X. I'm pretty sure because it sounds really ominous, and also because maybe Twitter changed its name to X as well, so it's just kind of in line with the overall symmetry, if you will, of the universe. This looks like a bunch of nonsense to me. And then on top of it, I was watching the clips involving Mr. Tedros, the head of the WHO, who, by the way, is a communist from Ethiopia that messed up a cholera epidemic so badly that he was, quote unquote, kicked upstairs or promoted into the WHO, probably just to get rid of him in Ethiopia. And if you don't believe what I'm saying there, go look at the history of that person. I have looked into all of it. That is what has happened. And he was a member of the Communist Party. I think he still is a member of the Ethiopian Communist Party. And when you get into the deep, high, whatever you want to call it, the high weeds of this, I'm sorry. We've been through what was effectively an economically debilitating 3 years, the past 3 years, which resulted in, quite honestly, the most draconian repression of basic notions of not only civil liberties, but human rights. All of this has... It eventually culminated in something of what I'd call a nothing burger, insofar as the media just kind of slowly tapered off in making this the biggest thing in the world. And we now kind of see that we were all to one degree or another duped. Now, again, I've never been one that's believed it was a total scam from the beginning, although more and more data might suggest that, yeah, it was definitely an overreaction by any stretch of the imagination. And that overreaction resulted in a great deal of profit for a great many corporate sponsors of a great many news organizations, especially in the West. I have said it before and I'll say it again. I think, especially here in Thailand, this was largely an outside influence. I know people got swept up in it in Thailand, but at the end of the day, I do not cast a great deal of blame on folks here internally because they, in my opinion, were acting in good faith. They thought the WHO was trying to provide guidance that would help Thailand, and in my opinion, in the end, that is not what they were doing. They were doing quite the opposite. Point of this video, though, is seriously, are we all going to get up in a fervor about something they say currently does not exist, but might theoretically in the future, and then we have to again surrender all of our liberties and take some experimental whatever, you know, medical procedure in order to get back to normal, or what they call the new normal now? My opinion is we don't. And in my opinion is we really need to rethink even the need for the WHO. I think nations can handle this at a local level. We need to seriously rebuff this pandemic treaty. I've discussed that in great detail in other videos, but the notion that some supranational organization has a better handle on how to handle national public health than the nation state is absurd. I think that was proven and borne out during the quote-unquote COVID pandemic of the last 3 years, or the flow of the COVID narrative, if you will. I think it was proven that nations were better at figuring out their own problems rather than, again, some international organization. But long story short, I kind of want to make this video if for no other reason than to let it be known that some are aware of this nonsense and some are aware of this narrative creation. And frankly, we're not interested in it. We want to get on with our lives. You had your chance. I believed people were operating in good faith at the beginning of this. You can go back and watch my videos on it. You know, I thought they were, there was something to it. I was worried about it, quite honestly, because I was stirred up into worrying about it and to some degree panicking, especially on a personal level about my, those closest to me. I was worried because, I thought people were acting in good faith. In retrospect, it looks to me like it was more of a money grab from Big Pharma, and it was also, at best, I think you could say it was ill-conceived, ill-executed, but what it resulted in was arguably one of the most efficient and effective repressions of human liberty, perhaps ever in the history of human civilization.